Part 2 of Children Love Their Cotton Candy.
Karuna took the form of a perfectly symmetrical Indian woman at the age of 45. She picked that age very deliberately, but she never told anyone why. She wore colorful clothes that flowed off of her when the wind blew, along with loose decorative ribbons and belts that would stream harmoniously in a breeze. She took the form of a small woman, but when she heard the echo of breathing through her glass dome mansion, she abandoned her form for another. Persistently, she grew bigger, and what was once a creamy mocha skin became small, thin scales. Her face contorted into something in between woman and creature, but there was a beautiful symmetry even in a form so alien. Her skin was made of speckles of red along with flowing patterns of orange and blue. Despite her monstrous grace, her huge teeth and claws never let you forget the danger in her beauty. Though she could have easily transformed herself bigger, she stopped at 11 feet tall with her ribbons flowing off her when she walked. She stopped for a moment and sniffed the air with her nose slits. Her eyes went from optimism to annoyance drastically.
You may show yourself. I know it is you,
she said in a thunderous, monstrous voice that rolled along the glass like an angel's choir. She heard the gears of this room shift and churn as if roused from sleep, and the dome readjusted itself to open to the night sky. She shook her massive head in lament and quickly grew wings from her back. She kept her eyes to the sky and waited for what she knew was coming next. A black streak shot out of the air and rocketed out of the skylight. Karuna followed into the air after the mysterious flyer. It only took a moment to overtake the shadow, but in that moment they were high above the clouds. The black creature was Karuna's inverse. It had no grace or symmetry. Its mere existence refuted that concept of there being a fair and just god. It was lumpy, lopsided, and black as emptiness. One eye was too big, one wing too short. Bones protruded out of angles that made it hard to imagine it could walk well. Its chest seemed to move as if its heart were not in the right place internally. If it were human, the likelihood it would have survived past infancy would be impossible, and even that was a generous assessment. Karuna threw the broken thing and watched its broken wings right itself.
I told you never to come here.
The abomination had no reply. They circled each other in the air, gliding. Karuna changed the subject, seeing this one would provide no apologies. She didn't quite know if it was intelligent enough to understand shame.
Why are you here?
The broken thing spoke, though it managed to do it in body language, context, and intent more than words, because it was nearly intelligible.
Watch all, sister brothers. And where is it now? No way.
It croaked, but Karuna knew its manner of speech well enough to know it meant it did not know. Karuna went in for a landing through the skylight dome. She elegantly sat down and retracted her wings until she sealed them up inside of itself. The creature crashed and fell over, unable to right itself.
Go away. I told you never to come here.
The broken thing showed no signs that it fully understood what she was saying. Karuna sighed heavily and just let it go. She traversed her stairs and began her search. That thing that called her mother followed her. Centuries before, true dragons were born, but now there were only dragons spawn. They were the half-human hybrid of her race that were the majority amongst her kind. True dragons were becoming a rare breed. Even in the height of dragonkind's power, it took 50 to 100 years even to bring an egg to term, but now there was nothing. No dragon had reproduced in centuries. Whatever spark that needed to breathe life was no longer there. It was as if dragonkind was destined to die off. Karuna had had 5 true dragon children and countless hybrid spawns. She loved all her children, though her deepest emotions were tied to those that came from the true dragon. Each and every one of her dragon children died before their time, and she had to live with the curse of knowing she would outlive all her other kids. She had already been a lover of children, but her birthing them seemed to be more than just vanity, but her duty to her species at this point in time. Karuna and the Broken One heard a commotion in the kitchen. They turned all their attention to it. Karuna confidently walked into the kitchen in her colorful, furious majesty with no conception of danger being as powerful as she was. The broken one shuffled along the floor behind her in an awkward gait. There in the kitchen was a malformed little abomination violently ripping into a huge block of Swiss cheese. Its eyes were empty sockets. One wing had no skin on it. There was a second half-formed head sticking out of the side of its face. The scales were brightly colored in spots, but had pieces missing like an unfinished jigsaw puzzle. Karuna began crying. She knew it was coming, but it still hurt. The little mockery of life's head went up as if it sensed them in the room. It tried to open its mouth, but no sound came out. Oddly enough, she heard the shrieking inside of her head. What it lacked in communication, it made up for in psychic ability. Karuna didn't want to see this broken child suffer. One quick jerk of the neck should have been enough to kill it. The deformed infant seemed to be smart enough to pick up on her intent.
No!
The broken thing said. Karuna turned her attention to the mockery at her side. He walked in between her and the baby.
Step aside. Brother! My brother! Me give get!
Karuna knew that her bastard son waited, but she was having a hard time living with the idea of letting another child face what he faced. Then she had an odd thought, that maybe she tended to destroy these abominations for the sake of her sanity, not for the well-being of the child. Its mangled form reminded her of everything she'd lost. This beast at her side was one of the few she had let go. She could only imagine the havoc and misery this thing caused, but she couldn't bring herself to kill him now that he had learned to live with his misery. Karuna quickly ran to the broken child. The abomination moved to intercept. She pushed him over easily with a single arm, then grabbed the baby by its neck like a mangy dog. Karuna looked at its eyeless sockets and could feel no love, but she could feel no hate either. The creature may have been God's joke, but its life meant something to someone. With all the willpower she could muster, she put the child in her arms and attempted to cradle it like something precious, even though it was a forced and hollow affection. She placed the crippled thing next to his brother and said as kindly as someone could say,
Leave and do not return.
This time the abomination seemed to understand. It took its brother in its longer arm, cradling it to its grotesque chest, then took to the air. Karuna followed the creature's leave through the dome, cursing herself for her decision, not knowing if she damned the world or showed mercy. She would never truly know if it were better if it never lived or was a monster. But it was just another thing in a long list of things she would have to shoulder the burden of. When the two broken things finally disappeared into the night, she cried real tears born of confused emotions.
Well, wasn't that story great? This story today was funded by viewers like you. If you send in to the number, you will receive a beautiful tote bag, but only if you hit the like and subscribe. Oh, they will not get a tote bag? Oh, well, them's the breaks. Howdy, 5,000.